I never thought my wedding day would teach me exactly how little I meant to the people who brought me into this world. But sometimes life has a way of showing you the truth in the most brutal way possible. My parents called my wedding a trivial event for someone at the bottom and didn't show up. While I was saying I do to the love of my life, they were posting Hawaii vacation photos with my sister's perfect family. But when their loan payments came due, they suddenly remembered I existed. What they didn't know was that I held all their financial strings. Sometimes the bottom person holds all the power they forgot about. 3 weeks before my wedding, I was floating on cloud 9. The venue was booked, a gorgeous garden space with fairy lights strung between ancient oak trees. My dress hung in my closet like a promise of the perfect day ahead. I'd spent months planning every detail, from the handwritten invitations to the playlist that would carry us through our first dance. Everything was falling into place exactly as I'd dreamed since I was a little girl playing dress-up in my mother's old bridesmaid gowns. I remember sitting in my kitchen that morning, addressing the final batch of invitations with my husband-to-be, Marcus. The golden sunlight streamed through our windows, and I felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude. After years of struggling relationships and feeling like I was never quite enough, I'd found someone who saw me, really saw me, and loved what he found. Marcus would catch me staring at my engagement ring sometimes, still amazed that someone had chosen me as their forever person. "Your parents are going to cry when they see you walk down that aisle," Marcus had said, sealing another envelope. "Your dad especially. Remember how emotional he got at Jennifer's wedding?" I smiled, picturing the scene. My father, Robert Thompson, had indeed gotten teary-eyed when my sister Jennifer married her college sweetheart 5 years ago. The whole family had been there, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, celebrating love and new beginnings. It had been magical, exactly the kind of wedding I'd always envisioned for myself. But even then, in that moment of pure happiness, there were tiny cracks beginning to form. My phone calls to Mom and Dad had been going to voicemail more often lately. When they did pick up, their responses about the wedding were increasingly vague. "We'll see," Mom would say when I asked about helping with flower arrangements. "Your father and I are just so busy right now." Dad's responses weren't much better. A non-committal grunt when I mentioned the rehearsal dinner, a quick subject change when I asked if he'd prepared his father of the bride speech. I told myself they were just overwhelmed. Dad had always been a workaholic, and Mom stayed busy with her volunteer committees and helping Jennifer with her 2 young children. They lived comfortable lives, sure, but busy ones. Surely they'd come around once the wedding got closer. Surely they understood how important this day was to me. The first real crack appeared during a family phone call 2 weeks before the wedding. I'd called to finalize the headcount with the caterer, needing to confirm a few last-minute details about dietary restrictions and seating arrangements. "So I've got you and Dad at the head table," I said, scrolling through my notes. "And I put Jennifer and her family at table 2, right next to—" "Sarah, honey," Mom interrupted, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she was about to deliver news I wouldn't like. "Your father and I need to talk to you about something." My stomach dropped. "What's wrong? Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. We're all healthy," she said quickly. "It's just, well, we've been thinking and we're not sure we're going to be able to make it to the wedding." The pen slipped from my fingers. What do you mean not able to make it? Mom, it's my wedding. My wedding!" "I know, sweetheart, but you have to understand. Jennifer's kids have soccer tournaments that weekend, and your father promised he'd be there. You know how important sports are for their development. And my book club is having our annual retreat, which I've been planning for months. We paid deposits and everything." I stared at the wall, trying to process what I was hearing. "Mom, this is my wedding day. I sent you the save the date a year ago. You've known about this longer than Jennifer's kids have even been playing soccer." "You're being dramatic," she sighed. "It's just one day. You'll have your husband and your friends there. You don't need us hovering around." "Just one day." The words hit me like a physical blow. Just one day. The day I'd been dreaming about since I was 5 years old. The day I would promise forever to the man I loved. The day I would officially start my new life as a married woman. Just one day. But, but you're my parents, I whispered. I'm your daughter. And we love you very much. Dad's voice came through the speaker. He'd apparently been listening the whole time. But let's be realistic here, Sarah. This is pretty much just a formality, isn't it? You and Marcus have been living together for 2 years already. It's not like anything's really changing. My hands started shaking. A formality? Dad, I'm getting married. I'm your daughter, and I'm getting married, and I want you there. Sarah, honey, Mom's voice had that patient, condescending edge that made me feel like I was 8 years old again. You have to understand our position. Your sister's family needs us right now. The kids are at such important ages for their athletic development, and Jennifer really depends on our support. You're established now. You have Marcus, you have your career. You don't need us the same way. The truth hit me then, even though I wasn't ready to accept it. I was the expendable daughter. Jennifer was the golden child with her perfect marriage, her perfect children, her perfect suburban life. I was just Sarah. Sarah who worked too much. Sarah who'd struggled through bad relationships. Sarah who lived in a modest apartment instead of a sprawling house in the suburbs. Sarah who had always been there, quietly supporting everyone else, never demanding too much attention or care. I do need you, I said, hating how small my voice sounded. I need my parents at my wedding. You're 32 years old, Dad said, his patience clearly wearing thin. You don't need Mommy and Daddy to hold your hand anymore. Besides, weddings are expensive. Do you have any idea how much this soccer tournament is costing us? Hotels, meals, gas money, it all adds up. I almost laughed at the irony. They were worried about the cost of a soccer tournament weekend when I'd been quietly helping them with their mortgage payments for the past 3 years. When I'd co-signed their car loan because Dad's credit had taken a hit during his unemployment period. When I'd been the one paying for Mom's expensive medical treatments that insurance didn't cover. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I just sat there, listening to them explain why Jennifer's children's soccer games were more important than their own daughter's wedding day. This is a trivial event for someone at the bottom anyway, Dad continued, and I felt something inside me break completely. It's not like you're Jennifer, with a real career and a real family to think about. You're just playing house with your boyfriend. Someone at the bottom. The words echoed in my head long after I'd hung up the phone. Someone at the bottom. Is that really how my own father saw me? After all the years of trying to make them proud, all the times I'd put their needs before my own, all the financial help I'd given them without ever being asked to pay it back, I was just someone at the bottom? Marcus found me crying at the kitchen table an hour later, my wedding planning notebook soaked with tears. Hey, what's wrong? He dropped his work bag and knelt beside my chair, his hands gentle on my shoulders. I told him everything. The phone call, the soccer tournaments, the book club retreat, the words that kept playing on repeat in my head. Someone at the bottom, a trivial event. They're not coming to our wedding, I whispered. My own parents aren't coming to our wedding because Jennifer's kids have soccer games. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and I could see the anger building in his expression. He'd never particularly liked my parents. He'd always felt they took me for granted. But he'd kept his opinions to himself out of respect for me. Sarah, he said carefully, you know this isn't about soccer games, right? I looked up at him through my tears. What do you mean? I mean, when was the last time your parents did anything that prioritized you over Jennifer? The question hung in the air between us, and I found I couldn't answer it. Because the truth was, I couldn't remember a time when I'd come first. Jennifer's graduation party had been elaborate. Mine had been a dinner at Applebee's. Jennifer's wedding had been a 3-day celebration with extended family flying in from across the country. Apparently, mine was too trivial to attend. Jennifer's children got grandparents who showed up to every school play and sporting event. I got parents who couldn't be bothered to attend my wedding. But I still held on to hope. Maybe they'd change their minds. Maybe they'd realize how hurtful their words had been. Maybe they'd remember that I was their daughter too, and daughters needed their parents on their wedding day. 2 days later, that fragile hope was shattered completely. I was at work, trying to focus on quarterly reports while my personal life fell apart around me when my phone buzzed with a notification. Jennifer had tagged me in a Facebook post. My heart jumped. Maybe it was something sweet about the wedding. Maybe she was trying to talk some sense into our parents. Instead, I found myself staring at a collection of photos that made my blood run cold. Jennifer, her husband, and their 2 children on a gorgeous Hawaiian beach. Mom and Dad were there too, huge smiles on their faces as they built sandcastles with their grandchildren and posed for sunset photos on the beach. The caption read, "Last-minute family vacation to Hawaii. So grateful Mom and Dad could join us for this incredible week. The kids are having the time of their lives, and we're making memories that will last forever. Sometimes you just have to drop everything and choose joy." Family time. Hawaii. Making memories. Blessed. I read it 3 times before the full impact hit me. My parents had chosen to go on a vacation with Jennifer's family instead of attending my wedding. Not only had they chosen Jennifer over me, they'd chosen a spur-of-the-moment trip to Hawaii over their other daughter's wedding day. The photos were posted in real time. While I sat at my desk, heartbroken and trying to figure out how to tell our guests that the bride's parents wouldn't be attending, my family was living it up on a tropical beach. The timestamp showed they'd been there for 3 days already, meaning they'd booked this trip after our phone call, after they'd told me they couldn't attend my wedding because of scheduling conflicts. There was my mother, looking relaxed and happy in a flowing sundress, her arm around Jennifer as they watched the kids play in the waves. There was my father, looking more carefree than I'd seen him in years, teaching his grandsons to snorkel in crystal-clear water. They looked like the perfect family that apparently didn't include me. The comments were already pouring in. Family friends expressing how wonderful it looked, how blessed they all were, how important family time was. Several people asked where Sarah was. Why wasn't I in any of the photos? Jennifer's response was quick and dismissive. "Oh, Sarah's busy with work stuff. You know how she is." Work stuff. My wedding had been reduced to work stuff. I locked myself in the office bathroom and cried until my eyes were swollen and my makeup was completely ruined. How could they do this to me? How could my own parents choose a vacation they could take literally any other week of the year, over my wedding day? But even as I sat on that cold bathroom floor, part of me was still making excuses for them. Maybe it was a surprise trip Jennifer had planned. Maybe they'd tried to change the dates but couldn't. Maybe there was some explanation that would make this all make sense. Then I saw Dad's comment on one of the photos. "Paradise found. Nothing beats quality time with the grandkids. Life's too short to spend it on trivial things when you could be making real memories like this." Trivial things. He'd called my wedding a trivial thing on social media for everyone to see. That's when something inside me finally broke. Not cracked, not bent. Broke completely. The part of me that had spent 32 years trying to earn my parents' love and approval shattered into a million pieces, and what was left behind was something harder, colder, and infinitely more clear-sighted. The wedding itself passed in a blur of bittersweet emotions. Marcus and I had decided not to postpone. Too many guests had already made travel arrangements. Too much money had been spent. Too many dreams were tied up in that day. Instead, we moved forward with heavy hearts and empty seats where my parents should have been. Walking down the aisle without my father was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. Marcus's dad had offered to walk me down, and while I appreciated the gesture, it wasn't the same. I dreamed of that moment, my father's arm, his proud smile, maybe a few tears as he handed me off to my new husband. Instead, I walked alone, my bouquet trembling in my hands as guests whispered and looked around for the missing parents of the bride. "Well, where are your parents?" people kept asking throughout the reception. I'd prepared a response, something vague about a family emergency, but each time I had to say it, it felt like swallowing glass. My own parents had chosen not to be there, and I was covering for them, protecting their reputation while my heart broke in public. The worst part was the phone silence. No call before the ceremony wishing me luck. No text during the reception asking how it went. No acknowledgement at all that their daughter had gotten married. While I was dancing my first dance as Mrs. Sarah Thompson, they were posting more beach photos with captions about living their best life and embracing spontaneous adventures. Marcus held me through it all. During our first dance, when I started crying, thinking about how my father should have been there for the father-daughter dance we'd never have. During the toasts, when his best man had to awkwardly skip over the traditional parent speeches. During the bouquet toss when I caught sight of the empty table where my family should have been sitting. "I'm so sorry," I whispered to him as we swayed to our song. "I'm so sorry they ruined our day." "They didn't ruin anything," he whispered back, his voice fierce with protectiveness. "This day is about us, about our love, about our future. They're the ones missing out, not us." But even as he said it, I could see the anger in his eyes. Marcus had grown up in a close-knit family where attendance at major life events wasn't optional. It was a given. The idea that parents would voluntarily miss their child's wedding was incomprehensible to him. Our honeymoon was supposed to be a time of celebration and new beginnings, but I couldn't shake the devastation of what had happened. Every sunset reminded me of the beach photos my parents had posted instead of being at my wedding. Every romantic dinner reminded me of the empty seats at our reception. Every moment of happiness was tinged with the knowledge that the people who were supposed to love me most in the world had chosen not to witness the most important day of my life. Marcus tried his best to distract me, to help me focus on our future instead of dwelling on my family's betrayal. But the hurt ran too deep. I found myself obsessively checking Jennifer's social media, torturing myself with more photos of their magical family vacation. There was Mom teaching the kids to hula dance. There was Dad building elaborate sand sculptures. There they all were at luau's and snorkeling adventures and helicopter tours, living their best life while I tried to process the fact that I apparently meant so little to them. The breaking point came on our third day in Maui when I was mindlessly scrolling through Facebook and found a video post from my mother. It was a compilation of clips from their Hawaii trip set to sentimental music about family being everything. The final shot was of all of them at what looked like a fancy restaurant, raising their glasses in a toast. "To family," Mom's voice said clearly in the video. "To the people who matter most, who bring real joy to our lives. Life's too short to waste time on anything less than pure happiness." I watched that video 3 times before I realized I was hyperventilating. Marcus found me on the bathroom floor of our honeymoon suite, sobbing so hard I couldn't catch my breath. "She said to family," I gasped between sobs. "She said to the people who matter most while I was on my honeymoon after they missed my wedding. I'm their daughter and I don't matter most. I don't matter at all." That night, lying in bed next to my new husband while he slept, I finally allowed myself to see the truth I'd been avoiding my entire adult life. This wasn't about scheduling conflicts or soccer tournaments or book clubs. This was about the fact that I had never been the daughter they wanted, never been worth their time or attention or love. I was the daughter who sent money when they needed it, who never caused drama, who quietly supported everyone else's dreams while my own got dismissed as trivial. I was useful, but I wasn't precious. I was functional, but I wasn't beloved, and for the first time in my life, I started to get angry about it. When we returned from our honeymoon, I expected to find voicemails, maybe flowers, some acknowledgement that their daughter had gotten married while they were building sandcastles. Instead, I found nothing. Complete radio silence. It was as if my wedding had never happened, as if I had ceased to exist the moment they boarded that plane to Hawaii. Marcus went back to work, trying to give me space to process everything, but I could see the concern in his eyes every morning when he kissed me goodbye. I'd become obsessed with understanding how I'd ended up here. 32 years old, married to a wonderful man, yet feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. I started going through old photo albums, looking for clues I might have missed. Birthday parties where Jennifer got elaborate celebrations while mine were afterthoughts. Christmas mornings where her pile of presents dwarfed mine. Family vacations where I was always the one taking the photos, never the focus of them. The pattern had been there all along, but I'd been too desperate for their love to see it clearly. The breakthrough came during a conversation with Marcus's sister, Emma, who'd flown in for our belated reception celebration. She was looking through our wedding photos when she made an observation that stopped me cold. "It's interesting," she said carefully, clearly trying to be diplomatic. "In all these family photos you've shown me over the years, you're always kind of on the periphery, aren't you? Like, here's Jennifer front and center with the kids, your parents flanking her, and you're sort of off to the side." I looked at the photo she was holding, last Christmas at my parents' house. She was absolutely right. Jennifer sat in the middle of the couch with her children on her lap, Mom and Dad on either side of her, all of them laughing at something. I was perched on the arm of the couch, smiling but clearly separate from the main family unit. "I never noticed that before," I whispered. "Sarah," Emma said gently, "I need to ask you something, and I want you to really think about your answer. When was the last time your parents asked about your life? Not your ability to help them with something, not your availability to do something for them, but actually asked about your dreams, your goals, your happiness?" I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it. I thought back weeks, months, years. Every conversation I could remember had been them talking about Jennifer's kids, Dad's work stress, Mom's social commitments, or some request for financial help or logistical support. When had they last asked how I was feeling, what I wanted, what mattered to me? "I can't remember," I admitted, and saying it out loud felt like a confession of something shameful. "Sarah, honey," Emma said, reaching for my hand, "I think you've been the family ATM for so long that they've forgotten you're actually a person with feelings." The words hit me like a lightning bolt because they were so starkly, painfully true. I was the reliable one, the one who never said no, the one who quietly solved problems without expecting anything in return. Over the years, I'd become a function rather than a daughter. That night, I sat down with a notebook and started documenting everything I could remember. The mortgage payments I'd helped with when Dad was between jobs, $34,000 over 18 months. The car loan I'd co-signed when their credit was too damaged, $28,000 that I was still technically liable for. Mom's medical bills that insurance didn't cover, another $12,000. Christmas gifts for Jennifer's kids that I bought but they took credit for. Family dinners that I paid for. Vacations that I subsidized. By the time I was done, the number was staggering. Over the past 5 years, I had given or loaned them nearly $80,000, and that was just what I could specifically remember. None of it had ever been paid back. None of it had even been acknowledged as a loan. It had all been accepted as my natural duty as their daughter. But what made me angrier than the money was the realization of what I'd been trading it for. I'd been buying scraps of attention, moments of approval, the illusion of mattering to them. Every time I'd helped them financially, I'd gotten a brief, "Thank you, Sarah, you're such a good daughter," and I'd mistaken that for love. "They've been using me," I told Marcus that night, my voice shaking with a rage I'd never allowed myself to feel before. "For years, they've been using me, and I let them because I was so desperate to believe they loved me." Marcus had been waiting for this moment, I realized. He'd seen what I couldn't see, but he'd known I had to come to the understanding myself. "What do you want to do about it?" he asked carefully. I didn't answer right away because the truth was scary. I wanted to cut them off completely. I wanted to stop being their safety net, their backup plan, their reliable disappointment of a daughter. I wanted to see what happened to their perfect little family unit when the person funding their lifestyle disappeared. "I want them to understand what they've lost," I said finally. "I want them to realize that I'm not just some bottomless well they can draw from whenever they need something." Marcus nodded. "How?" I started planning then, not for revenge exactly, but for consequences. Natural, logical consequences. They'd made it clear that I wasn't important enough to be considered family. Fine. Then they shouldn't expect the benefits that came with having me as family either. I spent the next week gathering documents. Every bank statement showing transfers to them. Every loan document with my signature. Every co-signing agreement. I photographed check stubs, saved email threads, documented everything. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it thoroughly. The first step was the smallest, but somehow the most significant. I blocked them on social media. No more torturing myself with Jennifer's perfect family photos. No more seeing my parents dote on grandchildren while ignoring their other daughter. No more watching them spend money I'd helped provide on vacations they took instead of attending my wedding. The second step was harder. I called their bank and removed myself as an authorized user on their accounts. They'd added me years ago during Dad's unemployment so I could help manage their finances, and they'd never removed me. I realized with growing anger that they probably assumed I'd keep monitoring their accounts forever, ready to swoop in whenever they overspent or miscalculated. The third step required courage I wasn't sure I possessed. I started the process of removing myself from their car loan. The bank informed me it would require them to refinance or find a new cosigner within 30 days. For the first time in years, their financial decisions would become their problem, not mine. Days passed with no contact from them, which only confirmed what I'd suspected. They'd assumed I'd keep quietly supporting them despite their absence from my wedding. They were so confident in their ability to take me for granted that it hadn't occurred to them that I might have limits. A week and a half after I'd started implementing my plan, my phone rang. Dad's name appeared on the screen, and for just a moment, my old conditioning kicked in. Answer quickly. Don't make him wait. Don't risk his anger or disappointment. Then I remembered the empty seats at my wedding, the Hawaii photos, the casual cruelty of dismissing the most important day of my life as a trivial event. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was brief and irritated. "Sarah, call me back. We need to discuss some financial matters." Financial matters. Not, "How was your honeymoon?" or "We're sorry we missed your wedding," or even, "How are you?" Just financial matters. I called Marcus at work. "He called," I said simply. "What did he say?" "Financial matters. He wants to discuss financial matters." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Are you ready for this?" Was I? This was the point of no return. Once I refused to engage on their terms, once I made it clear that the old dynamic was over, there would be no going back. But then I thought about my wedding dress hanging in the closet, worn once for a day they'd deemed too trivial to attend. "I'm ready." 2 more calls came that afternoon. I didn't answer either one. By evening, Dad had called 6 times and left 3 increasingly agitated voicemails. Mom had called twice. Jennifer had sent a text. "Dad said you're not answering your phone? Is everything okay?" I almost laughed at the question. Was everything okay? Everything had been very much not okay for quite some time, but they were only noticing now because their financial safety net had disappeared. That night, Marcus and I sat down and went over the plan one more time. I would answer Dad's next call, but I wouldn't engage on his terms. I wouldn't apologize for not answering sooner. I wouldn't immediately jump to solve whatever crisis had prompted the calls. I would let him speak first, and I would remember that I didn't owe him anything anymore. The call came at 8:47 the next morning. This time I answered. "Sarah, finally!" Dad's voice was tight with frustration. "I've been trying to reach you for days. The loan payments haven't been made." The words hung in the air between us, loaded with so much history and assumption. The loan payments haven't been made, as if it were my responsibility, as if I were some sort of employee who'd failed to complete an assigned task. "Hello, Dad," I said calmly. "How was Hawaii?" He clearly hadn't expected that response. "What? Oh, that. It was fine. Listen, we need to talk about what?" I interrupted, surprising us both with the steel in my voice. "About how you and Mom chose a vacation over your daughter's wedding? About how you called my marriage a trivial event? About how you've spent the past month posting happy family photos while completely ignoring the fact that I got married?" "Sarah, you're being dramatic again," he said, but I could hear uncertainty creeping into his voice. "We can discuss all that later. Right now, we have a more pressing issue. The car payment is overdue, and the bank called about the cosigner needing to—" "Don't contact me about trivial matters," I said, using his own words from the Hawaii Post. The silence that followed was deafening. I could practically hear him processing what I'd just said. trying to understand why his reliable, compliant daughter was suddenly speaking to him in a tone he'd never heard before. "What did you just say to me?" His voice was low and dangerous, the voice he'd used when I was a child and had dared to talk back. But I wasn't a child anymore. I was a married woman whose parents had missed her wedding for a vacation, and I was done being afraid of his disapproval. "I said don't contact me about trivial matters," I repeated. You know, like loan payments and car notes and all those financial responsibilities that apparently aren't as important as spur-of-the-moment trips to Hawaii. "Now you listen to me, young lady." "No, Dad, you listen to me." The words came out stronger than I'd ever spoken to either of my parents. "For 32 years, I've been listening to you. I've been the good daughter, the helpful daughter, the daughter who never asks for anything but always gives whatever you need. And what did I get for it? Empty seats at my wedding because you decided my marriage was trivial." "Sarah, I'm not finished." My voice was shaking, but not with fear this time, with fury, with years of suppressed hurt finally finding its voice. "You want to know what's trivial? 32 years of trying to earn love from people who see me as nothing more than a bank account with emotions. You want to know what's not trivial? A daughter who deserves parents who show up for her, who care about her happiness, who don't dismiss the most important day of her life so they can go play in the sand with their favorite child's family." "You're out of line," Dad said, but his bluster sounded hollow now. "Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, I've been out of your lives for years. You just never noticed because the checks kept clearing." I could hear him breathing heavily on the other end of the line, could picture his face getting red the way it always did when someone challenged his authority. "What do you want from us, Sarah?" he asked finally, and for the first time in the conversation, he sounded tired rather than angry. It was such a loaded question. What did I want? I wanted parents who loved me unconditionally. I wanted to be valued for who I was, not what I could provide. I wanted them to have been at my wedding, to have cried happy tears when I said my vows, to have danced with me and celebrated the beginning of my married life. But it was too late for any of that. "I want you to stop calling me about loan payments," I said simply. "I want you to figure out your own financial responsibilities. I want you to learn what it feels like to be an adult without a safety net, since that's apparently what you think I should be." "Sarah, be reasonable. We've been family for—" "Have we?" I interrupted. "Because family shows up for weddings. Family doesn't choose vacations over their daughter's marriage. Family doesn't call their daughter's life trivial." The line went quiet again. In the background, I could hear Mom asking who he was talking to, could hear the television playing some morning show. "The bank needs an answer about the car loan," Dad said finally, all the fight gone out of his voice. "Then give them an answer," I replied. "Find another co-signer. Refinance. Sell the car and buy something cheaper. Figure it out the way adults do when they don't have a daughter to fix their problems for them." "Sarah," I hung up. The phone immediately started ringing again, but I turned it off and set it aside. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding, and I felt simultaneously terrified and exhilarated. For the first time in my adult life, I had refused to be their solution. For the first time ever, their crisis was staying their crisis. Marcus came home to find me sitting on our couch, staring at the silent phone. "How do you feel?" he asked, settling beside me. "Scared," I admitted. "And angry. And free? Is that weird?" "I feel free." He pulled me against his side. "It's not weird at all. You just took your life back." Over the next few days, the calls and texts intensified. Dad called 17 times the first day. Mom started calling too, her voice sweetly manipulative in the voicemails. "Sarah, honey, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this isn't like you. We're worried about you. Please call us back so we can work this out." Jennifer sent increasingly frantic messages. "Sarah, what's going on? Mom and Dad are really upset. They said you're being unreasonable about some money thing. Can you just call them and work it out?" Even some extended family members started reaching out, aunts and uncles who'd apparently been recruited to talk sense into me. The narrative being shared was clearly that I'd suddenly and inexplicably cut off my loving parents over money, that I was having some sort of breakdown or being influenced by my new husband. None of them mentioned the wedding. None of them acknowledged that my parents had chosen a vacation over their daughter's marriage. The story being told was that I was the problem, the ungrateful daughter who'd turned her back on her family over financial disagreements. But I held firm. Every time my resolve wavered, I looked at my wedding photos. Marcus and me dancing alone while two empty chairs sat at the head table. Every time someone tried to guilt me into backing down, I remembered Dad calling my marriage a trivial event for someone at the bottom. The first crack in their united front came 2 weeks after my initial refusal to engage. Jennifer called, and for once her voice wasn't demanding or impatient. "Sarah," she said quietly, "I need to ask you something. Is it true that Mom and Dad weren't at your wedding?" I was so shocked by the question that I almost dropped the phone. "You didn't know?" No, I assumed they were there. Why wouldn't they be there? You're their daughter." The pain in her voice was genuine, and for a moment, I saw a glimpse of the sister I'd grown up with before she'd become the golden child. "They chose to go to Hawaii with your family instead," I said simply. The silence stretched between us. I could hear her breathing, could imagine her processing this information. "They said they couldn't come because of the kids' soccer tournaments," she said finally. "There were no soccer tournaments that weekend, Jennifer. Check the schedule." Another long pause. "Sarah, I had no idea. I swear, I thought they'd gone to Hawaii the weekend after your wedding. I thought it was just a quick family trip to celebrate." She trailed off, clearly realizing how that sounded. "To celebrate what?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "I don't know. I guess I didn't think about it." Her voice was getting smaller. "Oh my God, Sarah, they missed your wedding. They actually missed your wedding? Huh, and called it a trivial event for someone at the bottom." "They said what?" The shock in her voice was unmistakable. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, I felt like someone in my family was actually seeing me, actually understanding what had been done to me. "I'm so sorry," Jennifer whispered. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. If I'd known—" "Would you have said something?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Of course I would have said something. They're your parents. You're their daughter. What kind of parents miss their daughter's wedding for a vacation?" The kind of parents I had, apparently, but hearing Jennifer's horror, her genuine disbelief, made me feel less crazy. This wasn't normal family behavior. This wasn't something I should have to accept or understand. 3 weeks after I'd hung up on Dad, their financial house of cards began to collapse in earnest. The car got repossessed when they couldn't find another co-signer. Mom's credit cards got canceled when they couldn't make the minimum payments without my supplemental income. Dad had to take a second mortgage on their house to cover the debts they'd accumulated. I learned all this through Jennifer, who'd apparently become much more aware of our parents' behavior since our conversation. She was asking questions now, noticing things she'd never noticed before. "Sarah," she called me one evening, her voice shaken. "I found something. I was helping Mom organize her financial papers and I found all these bank statements. There are transfers from your account going back years, thousands of dollars. Have you been supporting them this whole time?" "Most of the time," I confirmed. Jesus Christ. I'd rarely heard Jennifer swear. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ask for help?" "When?" I asked. "When they were busy with your kids' activities? When they were planning your family vacations? When would have been a good time to mention that I was single-handedly keeping our parents financially afloat?" I don't know. I never realized. That was kind of the point. I wasn't supposed to matter enough for anyone to realize. Jennifer was crying now. "Sarah, what they did was wrong. Missing your wedding was wrong. Taking your money was wrong. The way they've treated you is wrong." It was the validation I'd been desperately needing without knowing it. Someone in my family finally saw me, finally understood what had been happening. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I looked around the apartment Marcus and I shared, at our wedding photos on the mantle, at the life we were building together without the weight of my parents' expectations and demands. "I'm going to be happy," I said simply. For the first time in my adult life, I'm going to focus on my own happiness instead of trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it to me.